Hi guys, my name is Brian. I'm going to be talking to you today about Docker. Docker is a tool that we as developers can use, and I'm going to walk you through sort of a high-level look at some of what it can do and why we might want to use it. So, first question, what is Docker, right? So, according to Docker's website, Docker containers wrap up a piece of software in a complete file system that contains everything it needs to run, anything that you can install on a server. So this guarantees that it will always run the same regardless of the environment it is running in. So basically what that means is that you can have a container operating in isolation, and you can send Docker what's called an image, which is basically your software that you're sending to Docker, and it can run just that bit of software with like a complete operating system and file structure already. So the main thing, the thing that this sounds like a lot like is a virtual machine. So a virtual machine is going to create an operating system for each instance. So it's really it's basically what it sounds like. It's going to create a whole virtual machine. So it's like not a lightweight process. The difference between that and Docker containers is that Docker, the Docker engine all runs on the same Linux kernel, and they share file structures. So that means that all I have to load up when I'm loading up Docker, when I'm loading up my application, is the app and its dependencies. So I don't have to worry about like running a whole new instance of an operating system. It's all going to run on the same kernel. So that makes it much more lightweight, which is nice. So why might I want to use Docker? So the first use case, there are many use cases, by the way. I'm just going to go through a couple of them because there's a large feature set. There are a lot of reasons why you might want to use this tool. The first reason I'm going to talk about is that you can get multiple instances of your application running across a very small, limited amount of hardware. So I don't need like all the space that a virtual machine would take up to boot up instances of my application. I can just run on these more lightweight containers, and that can, if I'm a business, that can save me a lot of money in storage and in storage. The second reason is that you can run user-entered code and tests in isolation. So this is a little bit of what we're doing for our capstone project. We are creating a collaborative text editor, and the idea is that the user will enter code into the text editor, and it will not be executed until it is sent to Docker, and is run in isolation in a container that is separate from our server. So we don't have to worry about anything being executed on our server, and we can have these instances running each in their own isolated container. The other thing is, if a company is onboarding engineers, big issue is that everyone has to get up their host environment set up. So you gotta get linked up with whatever the rest of the engineering team is using. Make sure that your environment mirrors their environment so that everything that runs for them runs for you. In this case, the local host environment doesn't matter. So if you've got your application running on Docker and you just want to work on the code through Docker, it's all going to be running in the same environment because it all runs on the same kernel. It's all running with the same file structure. You don't have to worry about, do I have this tool or that tool on my computer? All dependencies are going to be loaded up in Docker already. Now, how do we use Docker? So I'm just going to talk through a couple different methods that you can use with Docker. There are a ton of different commands you can use. It's very reminiscent of Git. So there are like a ton of commands. You can do all sorts of things, but it's very intuitive. So you use simple shell commands. So it's pretty fairly plain English. So Docker create is going to create a new container. Docker run, you're going to run a command in a new container. Docker push, you're pushing an image or a repository to your registry, which is pretty much the same way that Git works. Docker build, you're going to build an image from a Docker file. So, and what I'm going to show you is how we can create a Docker file, which is just going to be a file in your code, plain text file, that when you run it will boot up and build this Docker image. So, let's code. Okay. So, what I've got up here is just my terminal. Now, what I'm going to start out by doing is just docker run, and we're going to run an image that I've already pulled from Docker's registry. So it's just Docker. The repository is whalesay, and the image name is cowsay. And then I can make it say whatever I want to say. So, hey guys, what's up? Oh, it doesn't like that. What's up? Let me take this down. And the little whale says, hey guys, what's up? Cool. Now, I've already created the Docker file, so we don't have to do that, but I'm going to show you what it looks like. So if I just show you, here you can see that I have a Docker file there, and we are going to display that Docker file. And it's just 3 lines of code. So it's saying where it's running the image from, which is this repo, and then it's just going to update its package getting software, and then it's going to install another piece of software that's called Fortunes. And now the command we're running on it is just to pipe Fortunes into cowsay. So it's going to combine the 2 files, and what it's going to do is it's going to make it so that we don't have to enter text for the whale to say. So it's going to generate quotes for us. And the way we do that, so is to create our build, is we just say Docker build, and we're going to build a file we can call, or an image that we can call happy whale. I'm not actually going to run this right now because it takes a couple minutes or a minute or so to run. So I have run it already. So if you look at my Docker images, first one there is happy whale. So we are going to run happy whale. And Docker will look for it before it looks in the Docker hub, which is sort of like a GitHub. It's going to just look for it on your local machine. So I've already got it on my machine, so it shouldn't even have to go pull it. It should just be able to run it right from my local machine. All right, and you see the whale gets a random bit of dialogue to say. And that's a little bit of the basic. That's a very basic feature of what Docker can do. It can do a lot more. This is without even having a logging into my Docker account or whatever. This is just running Docker and letting it do its thing, pretty much. So the last thing I just want to talk about is called is a bit of a how do we use this with JavaScript, because we don't want to be sitting entering shell commands, and I found a nice library for that called Dockerode, which is just a combination of Docker and Node. And if you look, I'm not going to go through all this, but it basically just has a prototypal method that matches each shell command, and they're pretty much just create containers, going to create a container, create image, you're going to create an image. So it's basically doing the same thing that the shell commands would do, but you can run them in your JavaScript code. And that's the last thing I wanted to talk about. And here are some other resources. You've got the Docker docs, which are very helpful. There are also a couple of GitHub repos that were particularly helpful. It had a ton of Docker blog articles and whatnot. And yeah, there are a few others. The GitHub repo for Docker Road is nice. And yeah, that's a brief introduction, high-level introduction to Docker. Thank you. Anyone have any questions?